Well, welcome to summer. I'm Judy Sedgman. I'm the president of Tiger Bay, and I'm really happy to see you all. And I think we have a really valuable program today because there's no doubt in my mind that public safety is something that's always on our minds. But before we start, and we get started with that, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I also wanted to mention, if anyone is here who has not joined Tiger Bay, we are now halfway through the year. So we do half-year memberships. And so if you want to join now for the remainder of this year, it's a half. So you can do that if you'd like. And if you want to join or you'd like to encourage someone else to join, please see Donna at some time before we all leave. So today's program, if you've been following the news at all, then you know that Sheriff Stubbe has the obligation to produce a budget every year, and the County Commission has some obligation to do something with it, and it's never easy. So he's going to discuss with you the situation with the sheriff's budget and what are the implications of some of the decisions that are being made, and talk to you just about public safety generally in Manatee County. And because this is an issue that so many people have been caring about intensely over the past several months, we're also going to hear from Lieutenant John Murrell, who is a school safety officer, to talk about how we are policing our schools and how you can look at that issue. So I'm going to let Sheriff Stubbe start, and we'll go from there.
Good morning, or close to this afternoon, I guess. I'm going to give some numbers as I speak here this afternoon, but I want you to know that you don't have to write them down because they're all on my website. All the information that I give you is on manateesheriff.com, and Manatee Sheriff, all one word. So my current budget is $93,600,000. And we just did our budget presentation to the County Commission, and I'm asking for $6.7 million. $3 million, just a little over $3 million of that is to finish a salary compensation plan that we started this year. The County Commission was gracious enough to give us a little over $3 million this year because of the salary compression issues that I have. And I'll talk more in detail about that if you want when we talk about questions. But the bottom line is I'm losing deputies to other agencies, and we compare ourselves to 14 agencies in the surrounding area, and our entry-level pay is dead last. So it's a little bit tough for me to, even for someone that grows up in Manatee County, to say to them, well, come work at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office when you can go through the police academy and drive across the Skyway Bridge and go to Pinellas County Sheriff's Office or the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office or Tampa PD and make anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 more a year. It's a little bit tough for me to keep our folks here. So I'm asking for a little over $3 million, and if approved by the County Commission, for that salary increase, that will bring my agency up to the 2011 levels. And obviously, we're dealing here with the 2013-2014 budget, but that'll bring me up to the 2011. Now, we've done salary compensation studies every year since I've been the sheriff. We've done those studies even prior to that when Charlie Wells was the sheriff. So it's all based on sound principles. I'm also asking for $1.5 million, which is an increase to the Florida retirement system for my agency. Every July, not on the fiscal year for us, but every July, the Florida retirement system basically says what they're going to charge us, whether it be the sheriff's office or county employees or anybody that's in the Florida retirement system. And this year, it went up substantially. Now, you have to understand that the majority of the people that work for me are in what's called a high-risk category because we're law enforcement officers. And because of that, the percentage that's paid into the Florida retirement system is much higher. Those two issues, the little over $3 million for the salary plan and the $1.5 million for the Florida retirement system, were included in Mr. Hunzecker's budget that he recommended to be approved by the County Commission when he did his presentation. What's not included in my budget to the County Commission is a little over $2 million for 20 certified positions. Right now, I'm authorized for 479 law enforcement positions. Our population, and this is conservative, in the unincorporated area is about 256,000. So if you do the math, and again, you don't have to because I'll do it for you, that equates to 1.87 deputies per 1,000 people per our population. Now, there are a number of agencies that use ratios that talk about how many law enforcement officers you should have per 1,000 of folks that live in your community. We go by the one that's done by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Now, the national average per 1,000 is 2.4. The county average is 2.7, and the South Atlantic region average is 3.1. Now, again, I'll do the math for you. We're at 1.87, and the national average, which is the lowest, is 2.4. That means I need an additional 135 deputies. I also want you to know that I'm a realist. And I understand that the economic times that we're in. But you can use whatever ratio that you want to use. The bottom line is we're shorthanded in the road patrol. Now, I've asked the County Commission for about the last 3 or 4 years, just give me something. You pick the number, give me 10, give me 20, give me 30, but give me those positions every year so we can try to catch up here. Because when I don't get any, I'm not catching up. And I'm going to show you how this all relates. But before I do that, let's talk about the jail just a minute. The facility at the port was built in 1995. The Department of Corrections at that time said, I need 217 certified corrections deputies to run that facility. The population in 1995 was 759. That was the average daily population, 759. Today, I have 218 corrections deputies, and the average daily population is 981. Now again, I'll do the math for you. That's 18 years ago, and now I have one more deputy for 225 inmates. Now I have to encourage you to think about the jail population in 1995. Do you remember having gangs in 1995? Okay, we didn't, but today we do. We have over 14 identified gangs in Manatee County, between 600 and 800 members and associate members. So when we bring in someone from Brown Pride Locos, SIR 13, or East Side, my classification unit at the jail has to look at them and figure out, okay, I can't put this one in that pod with this one from this gang, otherwise we're going to have some serious problems. So that takes place every day at the jail. So now let's talk about fighting crime. In 2006, Manatee County's crime rate was ranked 4th highest out of 67 counties in the state. Now you should hear that again. You don't want to be the highest in the state with crime. You want to be the lowest. We were the 4th highest out of 67 counties. So we've been chipping away at this every year. And in 2011, we were ranked 9th. I so wanted to get out of the top 10. I really wanted to get out of the top 10. But in 2007, we started a number of initiatives that I'm going to touch on here. The RICO investigations, the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization investigations, where we went after the gang problem here. And since that period of time, we've dismantled a few of the gangs, but not really, because someone is ready to step right in as we make these arrests. But we've concentrated on 4 gangs. We've arrested nearly 50 gangbangers. All of them but one went to prison. There is still a number in this last RICO that we just finished that are still waiting out there for their plea negotiation and or trial. But pretty much all but one we've been very successful. And the one that we weren't successful actually initially was sentenced to prison, went to prison, and upon appeal had the decision reversed. But after he spent 4 years in prison, we decided not to go back after him again because his initial term was only 10 years. But we had the RICO investigations. We've had an aggressive enforcement related to the illegal drugs in our community. I created 3 patrol districts where I put a captain in charge of each one of the districts and made them responsible for the crime that's taking place in the districts. And I'm going to explain a little bit to that to you in just a minute as well. We've implemented intelligence-led policing. If I've been off for 3 days and I get in my car this afternoon at 3 o'clock to start my shift, I just pull up on my computer and it will tell me what's been going on for the 3 days that I've been off in my zone that I've been working. So I have an idea of where the crime has been occurring, intelligence-led policing. And then we have weekly crime meetings. And I want to describe for you the weekly crime meetings. They're every Tuesday afternoon. First of all, Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock I have my management team meetings. That's everybody, captain and that rank included, up to me. And we sit and we talk about what's going on not only in our agency but in the community and how we can make things better. But then Tuesday afternoons we have our crime meeting. In those meetings I have the enforcement and the investigative majors. I have the 3 patrol district captains and their operations lieutenants. I have captains and lieutenants from the Criminal Investigations Division, the Special Investigations Division, and Crimes Against Children Division. And I have the lieutenant from crime prevention, and I also have the crime analysts for each one of the patrol districts. Now, I know you're not going to be able to see this report, but this is what they get before we come to that weekly meeting. And I know you can at least see the red that's on this report. Okay, we give three reports. This was last week. And the red is a 25% increase in crime in a particular zone in one of the patrol districts. Then we give the month snapshot, and you can actually see more red here in the zones, in the patrol districts. And then we actually do from January 1st to date, and you can actually see a lot more red here. Now, I want to give you a snapshot of what we talk about in there, because this one particular red is in a zone called East 60 in the East Patrol District. So when it becomes the captain's turn to discuss his crime or lack of crime, he's going to key in on that because it has a red mark. And he's already done his homework. And I'm going to tell you, and please press, do not put this down about Walmart, but I'm going to talk about in that particular zone. You wouldn't want to be a patrol captain and have a Walmart. It's just not good because of the shoplifting that goes on. But anyway, that red, he will tell me that there was a lawnmower stolen off of Tuttle Avenue. There was a bicycle stolen from Walmart on Lockwood Ridge Road. There was a shoplifting, Walmart, a stolen cell phone from Walmart, theft from Publix, University Parkway, a theft from 2 different customers on Cooper Creek Boulevard, 2 more shoplifting and at Walmart on Lockwood Ridge Road. Those, by the way, had 2 arrests. Another shoplifting at Kohl's. So he's going to look at those, the patrol captain and his analyst, crime analyst, and the operations lieutenant, and they're going to look for patterns. Well, obviously, the big pattern here is that there's a lot of shoplifting going on at Walmart. Okay, and there's not a lot that we can do about that. However, if you happen to drive by the Walmart on State Road 70, the new one, you might see a Manatee County Sheriff's Office marked unit sitting in front of the building. And the next day that you go there, you may see it in a different location in front of that building or out in the parking lot. Well, just don't think that there may or may not be a uniformed deputy inside that store walking around, because I'm not going to tell you whether there is or whether there isn't. But we have things that we do to try to keep the shoplifting down. But again, there's really no established problem here with the crime that's going on with that red mark. However, let's change it up a little bit. Let's just say that that red mark was in Lakewood Ranch, and it was 10 vehicle burglaries. And they're all within a very confined area on 2 different streets. They happened on a Friday night and a Saturday night between 1 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning. So now that captain, that patrol captain and the operations lieutenant and the crime analyst better be telling me what they're doing to forecast where it's going to go from there and what they've done and who they're watching. Now, you may not think that this is a big deal, and you may think that because someone has the responsibility of the East District that they don't really care what's going on in the North District or the West District. Well, it's kind of like Chief Raz here from Bradenton PD. We talk all the time because just because they commit crime in the city of Bradenton doesn't make them not come into the county. It just doesn't work like that. And the same here goes on now. I have all of these people in the same room talking about all the bad guys. Now let me tell you about one of the things that they would look at here during this crime meeting and all those burglaries, those car burglaries in Lakewood Ranch. Who did we just arrest not too long ago in that general area for breaking into cars? And let's check that person's name to see if he's bonded out of jail. And guess what? He has. So what are we going to do? The district captains has the availability through the community-oriented policing unit that he has assigned to his district to put together either in unmarked, on bicycles, or marked cars, trying to forecast where this bad guy is going to go and follow him, pick him up before he leaves his house, and hopefully see him or watch him commit a burglary and effect another arrest. So we've done this now for 2 years. It's called ComStat in some of the police departments up north. And they're very, very tough up north. In fact, if you have a problem with some of the crime that's going on in your particular district, captains have been demoted to lieutenants because they're not addressing the crime. Well, we don't do it that way. We have a collaborative effort that goes on with everybody working together to the end means of reducing crime. So how does that all tie together for you? Well, because of the effort of the men and women at the sheriff's office, in 2012, last year, in 2012, we had nearly a 16% decrease in crime. 16%. Now, guess where that put our crime rate at? We're finally out of the top 10. We're 16th. We're 16th, and I cannot tell you how pleased I am about that. So why the need for additional personnel? I'm sure you've heard this one before. We need a safe community. I hear it all the time. A safe community will bring more businesses. More businesses will bring more jobs. More businesses and more jobs will bring people. More businesses, more jobs, and more people will strengthen our tax base and our local economy. Wow. It's pretty staggering stuff, isn't it? Now, I know you'd find this hard to believe, but I get this better than most people in this community. And what I do every year to make the tough decisions to submit budgets to the county commission that I feel that is necessary to keep our community safe is exactly what I do. Now, just for comparison purposes, from January of this year into like March, we had a 4% increase in crime. Okay, through these crime meetings that we've been having, we looked at that, and the majority of it is burglaries to vehicles and burglaries to residences. So we put together a burglary task force. We ran it for 30 days. We concentrated on those people that were in jail for burglary that had been recently released. We concentrated on the pawn shops, which is where all of the stolen material, or most of the stolen material, ends up. We actually were going to every pawn shop in Manatee County and Scrapper every day. They got tired of seeing us. You see, because there's a county ordinance that mandates how they operate and how they take things in and how they document it and how they forward that information to us. And if they were not doing it correctly, which we found out in a bunch of these spots for 30 days, we wrote them up for that. And one of them actually lost his business, his pawn shop business. But that's a part of doing business for us. So now, after 30 days, we made 47 arrests. And today, that report that I showed you that had all the red splotches on it, from January 1st to date, we are now at a 1% decrease in crime. But we still got 6 more months to go. So this is another reason why I'm asking for people. I talk a lot about the numbers, especially, you know, the crime rate's going down. We're bouncing. Now we're down to 16. That's how we get graded as an agency. And that's why I talk about the numbers. But there's something more important to me than the numbers. And I think it's more important to you. Do you feel safe where you live? I don't know where you live in our community, but do you feel safe? Do you feel like going out at night and taking a walk? Do you feel like when it's dark going out at night and taking a walk? Do you feel like going to the DeSoto Square Mall across the street from my office?
No.
Okay, so my point is we still have work to do. And when I'm responding to 850 calls for service a day, that leaves very little time for my people to do preventative patrol in your neighborhoods and mall parking lots, because all we do is go from call to call. And so when I did that 30-day burglary task force to try and get the crime back down, I had to pull from all over my agency to do that, which left other assignments and responsibilities unattended for 30 days. So now they're back out doing what they need to be doing. I've pulled a couple more people in because we see this huge problem with the pawn shops, but I've pulled them back in so that we're actually going to a number of these pawn shops each and every day, making sure that they're in compliance with what they're supposed to be doing. So now let's switch gears a little bit, because again, this is, see, I'm close. I'm just about ready to turn this over. All right. There's been a concern in our schools since the shooting in Connecticut. I cannot tell you how many emails and telephone calls I got from concerned parents. You may or may not know that several years ago, we cut the elementary school resource officers out of the elementary schools. There were 5. Obviously, I did that because I was trying to save money. Since 2008, I've cut nearly $5 million out of my budget. I've cut over 40 positions, and most of those positions have been supervision. In fact, let me just give you this example. I have 3 shifts that run every day, 7 days a week. And technically there should be a lieutenant on all 3 of those shifts, but there isn't. Because there are 12-hour shifts, I run one on the day shift and one on the midnight shift that covers the shift in between. So I've cut lieutenants, I've cut captains. My chief deputy just retired in January. I have not replaced that because I can get 2 deputies for that money. So we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but I need help. So, talking about SROs, there's a man who has just grown up in that program. Lieutenant John Morrell started as an SRO, was a sergeant in the SRO unit, and is now the lieutenant of that unit, and has been a lieutenant for a number of years. And he can tell you all about what goes on in the schools. Lieutenant Morrell.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff. I guess he's right. I guess I can tell you since I've been there for a very, very long time. And you're going to find out that when I talk about School Resource Officer Program, I'm going to refer to it as SRO. With me being in that program for so long, I have a strong passion. So some things I'm really going to come out and just say it the way I feel from the heart. How many of you really have kids or grandkids in school? I'm quite sure if they come home and talk about the school resource officers, if you ever ask them, what do they do, why they're there. We are patrolmen. We're all certified. We all went through the FTO program. We went through a specialized training for being a resource officer. And being that, our duty calls for us to go straight to the schools. We work schedules just like the teachers. Right now, these deputies are out doing specialized training as far as some of the areas that the sheriff said that was being hit. We put them in those areas during the summer. We go through our vacation time. And then next week, some of us will be going to the SRO conference so we can get the latest of what's going on as a SRO. And how do we do that? We wear 3 hats. We're law enforcement, we're educators, and we're counselors. We have programs that, when the sheriff talked about missing the 5 elementary, and that what really tears at me a little bit, because that is the foundation of the SRO program. That is the base. Those are where the kids still we're connecting with them as far as being, I'm gonna tell you, the rock star. I'm not even a resource officer at an elementary school, but I can walk out with one now and the kids are gonna love me. They look up to you. They have a lot of questions. The first thing they want to know is, where is your taser? I don't know why they talk about the taser so much, but they want to know, where is the taser, okay? But they want to know about all the stuff. And we're educating them on who we are and what we do to feel safe. There are things that are happening when we had the program, child lures. What do you do when you're approached by a stranger? We teach them. We tell them how you say no and you get away. You don't open the door and you go tell your parents. We teach them that. We teach them gun safety. Do not touch. Stay away. Find someone to secure the gun. That is the root of the program. We, at the peak of the program, when I say numbers, we had the 5 at the elementary. We had 9 at middle schools, 4 at the high schools. We had 1 that covered MTI and Central and 2 at Horizon. And presently, we're none at the elementary, 7 at the middle, 4 at the high school, none at Central or MTI, and we still have the remaining 2 at Horizon. The programs are very key, very key. When something happens, that's our time to go in and to educate and to tell them what has happened, how can we avoid. When you talked about Sandy Hook, I'll never forget that day because it was December the 14th. Where was I December the 14th? I was not in Manatee County. I was in Tallahassee preparing to see my son graduate. My phone started ringing, and it was ringing, and it was ringing, and ringing. I couldn't get to a TV to see what was going on, but I knew when I got to a point where I can actually see what was going on. It was an elementary school. 20 elementary kids, 6 adults. I even looked at the images and I seen what I didn't want to see here in Manatee County. The sheriff okayed for us to increase patrol at the elementary level. We went in, arrival time and dismissal time. We showed the parents, the present. Parents was very happy. I was one of them. Every morning I selected a elementary school, parked my car, walked on campus, waved to the parents, welcomed the kids in. I go back and I reassess that. I said, what was missing in that? We showed the presence. We let the parents know we will come out after a critical incident. But the kids never got educated on how we prevent that from happening. That's the role of an SRO. We prevent. We teach them, when you see something strange and you don't like it, you come tell us. We build that rapport where you're not scared of us. You walk up to us and you can call me by name because you know me. This is what's going on. I've seen this happening. At the bus stop, we done had incidents before school. They come tell us. Now we're missing that. We're saying now at the middle school, high schools, it's hard to get them to even how they come to school. But that's where it lies. The elementary kids getting the rapport with that deputy, the parents. We had a grant, and I implemented something. The officers from every grade level, which we didn't have elementary at the time, but I started, and I'm hoping that one day, I hope and pray that we get back to the elementary level, that I wanted the officers to connect with the kids, the staff, and the parents. So I made it mandatory. Every SAC meeting in a quarter, which you got 3 months to make one SAC, to explain to the SAC, who is the voice for that school, what you see that needs to be corrected, things that are going right, things that you would love to see that's changed. Go in there and voice that from the law enforcement point of view. You see a lot. They will trust you. You're the one that's dealing with their child on a day-to-day basis. If you got fights, you got to tell them you have fights, where the fights are occurring. How are we going to stop those fights? What happens in the community is coming to the schools. The sheriff asked the question, do you feel safe in your community? I asked the question, do your child feel safe in their school? How do they feel safe? It's by the things that we implement, the teaching, the training. Not only the training to the students, but the training to the staff. My wife is an educator. I drill her all the time. State law says that you have so many fire drills. Okay? I asked her, I said, so what do you do in an active shooting situation? Total silence. What do you do? Anybody here can tell me the last time we had a school that was burnt down? But we have had school shootings. We have had lockdown drills. We're so far behind. We got to catch up. How do we do that? You say resource officers, that's one component. We work together with the schools. We bring these things back. We're not waiting for something to happen. We're going to be prepared when something does happen. Our teachers will know what to happen. I told my wife, the same way you know what to do in a fire drill is the same way you should know how to do in an active shooting. Your plan should be in your head. You know what to do in a fire drill because you practice it time after time after time after time. Same thing you should do in an active shooting. When they had the shooting, Columbine, they went back and reevaluated as far as law enforcement what was missing. They was waiting for the SWAT team. Our sheriff said, we're going to change that. All of my deputies are going to have active shooting training. If there's an incident at a school, we're not waiting for SWAT. I'm a part of SWAT then. If there's a school that has something going down, me and another deputy or the resource officer, 3-man SWAT, we're in there. We're going. Dispatch, we in. Active shooters have one mission. It's to kill as many as they can in a short period of time. That's why we change. Now we have a 3-man going in there to find the shooter. We just completed assessment. Our SWAT commander went to every school in our jurisdiction, 26 elementary and every high school and middle school. He came out with a report of what we need to improve on, and we're going to take a strong look at that. And really, I hope that we can actually implement some of the things he's recommended that we can do. I am with each and every one of you as far as keeping our community safe, our schools safe. I don't want you to see the image that I saw when I pull up and looked at Sandy Hook. I have been there at Lincoln. I have seen the parents run up to the school demanding that their child be released. And I'm a parent too. And if I was in law enforcement, I probably did the same thing they did. But I want to say that if we work together, we can really make this happen. And is it with just the SROs? No, but that's a beginning. It's a beginning, it's a start, and we have to go back to it. Thank you.
Wow. Well, it's time for questions and answers, and you know the rules. If you're a Tiger Bay member, please feel free to walk to the microphone, state your name and that you're a member of Tiger Bay and which person, if or both people, that you'd like to ask your question to. And we'll start with Misty.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. And Sheriff Stubbe, I was going to ask you about the George Zimmerman trial and Stand Your Ground Act, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it local and just a comment that I agree the SRO program is so needed and we need them back in our elementary schools. It's when the kids develop a good perception of law enforcement. We need that. We need them. Please bring them back to our schools. We've got to do that. So, and then my question is, there was a shooting at Johnson Middle School where I have one child this past year. No one was hurt, thankfully, but it was very scary. We screen our children for eyesight and height and weight and scoliosis standardly every year in the school. When are we going to start screening our kids for mental health issues to try and find the kids that have these problems that may create violence in our schools?
The CEO Roundtable, which I'm a member of, and Mary Ruiz has attended on a number of occasions, we've actually had this discussion already, That is actually chaired by the person in charge of the school board, and I think we're headed down that road. And I think the school is very open to what Mary has suggested. And of course, you know, Mary and I and the law enforcement agencies partnered a number of years ago, and we do crisis intervention training for all the law enforcement officers. So I think we're headed down that road. And I do want to make a statement. I know you didn't want me to say anything about Zimmerman, but I will make a statement so that you understand what we do. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office has been sending out daily situational reps for us so that we know exactly what's going on, what the chatter is online at those locations there, and they're monitoring it closely. And then, of course, the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, who has that responsibility for that trial, is part of the Florida Sheriff's Association, which I'm a part of, and we have mutual aid agreements. And there's already been people reaching out so that if there are problems there or here, it's just pick up a telephone and call for what assistance we need. But I just would hope and pray that no matter what happens here in this trial, that people would act the way that they need to act.
Ditto that. Did you want to comment on her issue, or no? Okay. Joanne.
Hi, Joanne Clement. Full disclosure, we have 3 grandchildren in the public school system, so we are passionate about the public schools. My question is there a plan for a security assessment for each school? The reason I ask that, I volunteer at a school. I found a parking lot where I could scoot in, and I think it's where deliveries are made, but there were a set of double doors open for me to get into the school, and a few hours later to exit the school. There was no one in attendance of these doors, and I have been doing this for several months. Those doors are always open.
First of all, I would suggest that you go in and contact the person in charge of that school and bring that to their attention. But as John has already said, my SWAT team commander has already done threat assessments at every school. I just put the cover letter on that information and have sent it to the school and the school board. And there are a number of things there that if we could just get all on the same page that we need to be doing to make our schools more secure. But that's a great point. But again, I would encourage you or anybody else that sees a problem at a school, go in and talk to the principal and ask them if they can.
So a security assessment has been done of each building?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you.
JD.
Actually, got one for both of you.
Name?
JB Taylor, Folly Brand Architects. We're a corporate member. So, a few years ago, we designed what was the last scratch-built school, Rogers Elementary, and I was a project architect on it. We interfaced with the school district. Now, granted, that was 2007. This is 2013. It was 6 years ago. A little bit of a different time period now, as you said, with the gangs and everything. Is there a process, and I'm speaking from the architectural community, that when we finally start redesigning, rebuilding, or building schools, is there a process that you're interfacing with the school district on how these schools are laid out to help with security? I know we do things like SEPTEC, crime prevention through environmental design. We do the single entries and all that other stuff. But is there a review process that you guys can take a look at the plans also and help us design the school properly for safety as well?
And I can tell you from the county part, one of the latest schools that was like Rowlett Elementary, when they did that, we were included. A lot of their plans layout was given to us, and I knew someone from our crime prevention unit took a look and actually went through the specs and everything and gave some ideas and some suggestions as far as safety.
All right, thank you.
Karen Grablin, I'm a Tiger Bay member. I have 2 questions and then maybe a third one if there's time. The first one's a simple one to know, is there a resource within the Sheriff's Department with regard to the cyber crime aspect of child lures and things like that? So much of that can sometimes happen online, or that starts there. First question. Second, and that's a broader question and may even be a future Tiger Bay subject meeting, is after Sandy Hook, I got very passionate about the whole idea of gun control. And I'd be curious to hear some comments as you feel comfortable making them on how you would feel about more of that. Probably would, but it's certainly a debate.
Well, the gun control, we have plenty of laws on the books. They just need to be enforced. And I appreciate the Second Amendment and what we're able to do there. I believe that if you're going to have an issue with firearms, that you need to just enforce the laws. I believe that what was brought forward about mental health, that needs to be a portion of it. I know that the process for getting a concealed firearms permit, even though there's a box there that you can check that asks you whether or not you've ever had any mental health problems, just so it's checked doesn't necessarily mean that there is a check that goes on after that check. So yeah, there's a problem with that aspect of it. Now, what was your first question?
Had to do with cyber crime.
We have several people that actually do that sort of thing in our crimes against children. And we also have several computer programs. One's called Computer Cop that you can get from an SRO or our crime prevention or any of those folks. All you got to do is call and we'll even mail it to you. It's free. You can install it on your computer, and when your kids are using the computer, it works on keywords that they may use or may come to them, and it will alert you. So yes, we do have things out there that we do. And I'm sure that you're aware of the two operations that we've done recently with Operation Green Shepherd, where we were actually looking at those folks that prey on our children online. We did 2 undercover operations here in the county. One was September of 2012, the other was March this year. And basically, our adult law enforcement officers get online, and there are a ton of chat rooms that they enter. And the conversation is based around the fact that these people want to have sex with a male or female that's under the age of 14. And all that is put out there. Most of them, I shouldn't say most, but a number of them travel here from other communities. And it's just like what you see on Dateline and ABC News, where they walk in and all of a sudden it's surprise, you're under arrest. We arrested 43 people the first operation that we did, and 35 people. And this was the thought of a Florida sheriff, by the way, in Citrus County, Jeff Dawsey. And we started this about 4 years ago. And a number of sheriffs in this region, Tom Knight down in Sarasota's done one, Hillsborough County's done one, Polk County's done several, and we've done it. And I think we, the sheriffs in this area, are just kind of trying to send the message, don't do that here. But it's a way in which to protect our kids online. Yes, ma'am.
Ben?
Hi, my name is Ben Bacher, and I'm a Tiger Bay member. First off, I should preface just by thanking you guys for everything you and your employees do every day. The community appreciates all the work that you guys do. So. My question, I guess, should be for Lieutenant Merle. It's a twofold question that's directly linked. First is, what year was the elementary SRO program cut? And my second question, directly linked to that, is, do you personally feel that the escalation in gang activity is due to the fact that the elementary SRO program was cut and you were not able to head them off the pass, and by junior high and high school they were more easily impressionable and recruited into gangs and caused the heightened gang activity?
To answer your question on the first part about the year it was cut, 2010, and whether it had an impact on increase of gang, I really can't say. I know that with the program, that was an educational piece. With the numbers that the sheriff talked about in his presentation about how many gangs members we do have in the county, a lot of those ones that are identified as gang members do have siblings, relatives that are connected. And those are the ones that we probably would have had an impact on with the SROs being in place, but without that, who knows whether they would become or would not join, or if they're not already, I don't know. But that's what we would love, to just have that opportunity to be there, to have something in place. because in the Crossroads program that we used to run in the elementary, which ran 8 weeks, that was one of the curriculum. Spending that time telling them why you shouldn't be in there. And we found out when we was in there that some of them will share that they have relatives that are involved in gang activity. You're welcome.
I'm Bob Turner, and I'm a member. And my question's for Sheriff Stubbe. To me, this whole thing gets put in perspective when you look at being 9th highest crime rate, and then you work that down to 16th. And I'm presuming that you're going to continue to do the same good job, and you might get it down to where we're better off than that. But that's 16th out of 67 counties. So what's the difference between 16 and 67? How bad off are we? Because there are many other counties where business and industry is going to look and relocate because they're safer, and we're not. So what's basically the difference? My question is, what's the difference between 16th and 67? And are there pockets where, like, from 16 to 25 are about the same? And how does that picture really look?
That's a great question, Bob. And it deals with, and it's so much related with, I'm talking about last year we had a 16% decrease in crime. Well, that's the crime that the Uniform Crime Report is based on, which is the rape, robberies, aggravated assault, burglaries, larcenies, motor vehicle thefts. There's just those crimes, and then obviously there are other crimes that go with that, but that's what those reports are based on. So the more reduction in crime that you can have, the lower generally you're going to end up on the crime rate, because it's based on the number of crimes that are committed in your community based on 100,000 population. And people always compare us with Sarasota County. Sarasota County's crime rate is actually less than ours. I don't remember, but I want to say it's like 3 or 4, maybe they're like 16 or 19 or 20, something like that. But there are so many things that you have to take into consideration, because people like to compare Sarasota and Manatee County all the time. Well, when it comes to law enforcement, we have about 143 more square miles than Sarasota County has that I'm responsible for in the unincorporated areas. We have a larger jail population. We have a larger population overall in the unincorporated areas. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration when you're trying to make these comparisons. So we actually compare ourselves to the other agencies and other communities that are like and similar in size. Marion County is pretty close to what we are in size of community and in size of sheriff's offices. So we try to compare ourselves with things like that. But again, this is very important, and you said it, and I've said it numerous times. When a business wants to relocate and they're out of the state or even out of the county and they call here, they call the sheriff's office. They talk to my crime analyst and they say, what's your crime rate in the state? And when we were telling them that we're number 4, I can almost guarantee you that they're not coming here, especially when they can go south or north or somewhere close by and the crime's not so bad. I mean, it all boils down to where do you want to live? Where do you want I had a person that called me. They used to live in Holiday Heights 20 years ago, moved out of the area, just came back. I knew this person. They said, hey, thinking about moving back. You used to live in Holiday Heights. The street that I lived on, and there was a couple houses I'm thinking about actually going down there and relocating. What's the crime rate like? Okay, well, those of you that live here know that 35, 40 years ago, property people that work for the county decided to build a bunch of duplexes down in South County for low-income people to live in. And that's where the majority of my problems started. But then it went to Doe Villas out at 86th Street and Cortez Road. Those are duplexes and triplexes. Then it went to Bayshore Gardens. Then it went to all of those other areas. So I'm telling this person, well, things have changed here. You ought to look somewhere else. I mean, it's difficult for me to do. So there are a lot of factors. I had, during my presentation to the County Commission and I touched on a lot of these things I touched on today, I was asked, well, if you get more people, is the crime rate going to come down? Well, you know, the thing about it is I'm 135 short, and that's a conservative estimate. You give me 10 now, I can't tell you that the crime's going to come down, but maybe in the future, if we continue to incrementally address this problem, which is what I've been asking for, then possibly 3 or 4 years from now, maybe we'll even out here. But right now, with a 1% decrease in crime, I don't see the crime rate for Manatee County moving more than 1 or 2 positions one way or the other. We may go back to 15 at this point.
Thanks.
Yes, Bob.
My name is Becky Kness. I'm the Executive Director of Just for Girls, and I'm a Tiger Bay Club member. I want to talk to you about what's behind the crime, how much of it is related to drug use, how much of the gang activity is related to drug use. Tiger Bay Club had a meeting recently where we learned about human trafficking, and we were learning that these gangs had been making money by selling drugs, and there's a shift now where they're starting to sell these young girls. Could you comment on how much of a problem we have with gangs in that relationship, and also how much of the crime is driven by drugs?
A lot of the crime is driven by drugs. The car burglaries, the residential burglaries, and what they steal, the televisions out of your house that end up in pawn shops or sold or traded to drug dealers on the street for drugs. I can't put a percentage on it, but it's pretty high. And the fact that the gangs are involved in this, it'd be great that someday, you know, we started this against the gangs in 2007. And you know, I stand up here and I tell you we put at least 50 gangbangers in prison. There's more, and I give you a for instance why. But the bottom line for me is, I don't think any time in my term as a sheriff that I'll ever be able to stand before a crowd like this and say, we don't have a gang problem anymore. Because it's always there, as John said. It's coming up through the kids in our school, and a brother and a sister gets arrested and goes to prison. Well, guess what? After they do their 4 years or 10 years or whatever their sentence is, guess where they're coming back to? Here, Manatee County. And I'm not sure that we're ready for that yet. So there is a correlation between the drugs and the gangs actually selling the drugs. You know, the ones that we did, guns and drugs, was the predicate crimes that we got them linked together onto in order to do the RICOs. There's been a number of arrests that have taken place that have been gang related, that we took them through the federal system. And the reason we took them through the federal system is because there were guns and drugs. And when you get a significant amount of drugs, you get a pretty hefty fine and incarceration in the federal system. And that's why we like to take them through the federal system when we can. We've got a great working relationship with DEA and the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tampa, and it was a joke among those folks that we used to pick up that were gangbangers. When we picked them up, they would ask us, "Are you taking me to Tampa?" Because they knew if we were taking them to Tampa that we were picking up federally and not taking them to the Manatee County Jail. And most of the time when we picked them up and took them to Tampa, they don't get to bond out. They're there until they go to trial. So there's a huge correlation with drugs, huge.
Well, I want to.
Well, you all had that.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's also part of the problem.
The law has changed so that we can now look at the pimp, per se, that's out there doing what he's doing. And there are now more avenues that law enforcement can take to bring the girls, the prostitutes that are out there that we believe are actually involved in the human trafficking. They're being used for that. So we can now focus more attention there, whereas before, you know, we had girls that had been arrested 40, 50 times for prostitution. And you would think that the drugs were behind that. In most cases, they were. But there was always another element there that now we have an opportunity to address.
I want to lift up, too, the importance that you described in the city and the Sheriff's Department working together, law enforcement, the school district working together, as well as the community organizations like ours, with which we've had a tremendous partnership for many years and been much more effective and much more efficient, too. So I want to thank you for all of that.
And I appreciate your comments. And Bob Turner has come to a couple of our meetings that we hold with the gangs. And I've got the city's support, and we have the YMCA, Jerry Parrish. We've got the Boys and the Girls Club. We have all of these people working together toward this issue. Jerry Parrish, if you all don't know him, holy cow. That guy blows up my telephone 4 or 5 times a week. He's calling me, just staying in touch about what they're doing and what they're trying to do, and the alternative school that the YMCA is trying to get into place so that we can keep the at-risk kids in a school instead of on the street. So yeah, it's a great collaborative effort. Thank you very much, Becky.
You mentioned prevention, and you're here talking about the budget. And we all know that prevention is so much of a cost saver in terms of avoiding the higher costs of treatment and jail care later on. So I'm so pleased to hear what you're doing on the preventative end as well. Thank you.
Chris? This may be the last question. Oh,
No, you go ahead.
well, then there'll be 2 last questions.
See, I'm trying to get up and getting back down. so.
Chris.
Okay, I'm Virginia Siraki. I'm a member of Tiger Bay, and this is a question for Sheriff Stubbe. In talking about prevention, we often see your vans driving through neighborhoods that are staffed by civilian. Can you explain how they augment what you do and what their training is and what they're all about?
That's a great question. I have a huge volunteer program where they do not get paid, but they get to take a marked police car out and drive around neighborhoods, and they think that's cool. And I think that's cool too. You know, if you're going away for 2 weeks and you want somebody to take a look at your house, you call in, you do a patrol request, and those folks are the ones that kind of drive to your house. They'll get out, walk around, just make things, make sure everything is okay. Then I have civilian people that are actually paid that work in some of those vehicles as well, and they take a load off of our certified deputies so they can actually go out there and do what they need to do. They'll go to traffic accidents and direct traffic. They'll go to crime scenes and take fingerprints. There are just a number of things that they're involved in. But no, we have a huge volunteer population who do not get paid, and we have a very limited volunteer group that actually does get paid.
And these volunteers go through some sort of training with your officers?
Yes, ma'am. They have to go through training, and we have 3 levels depending on where they're going to be and what they're going to be doing at the agency. I have, and I'll just use this as an example because this just came up, we seize vehicles from drug dealers. And we have a location in Manatee County. It's a pretty huge building where we put those vehicles. Well, somebody's got to go down there and start them once a week and check the fluid and all those things. And I had a couple lieutenants doing that. And I said, this is nuts. I know a guy, a civilian, who's retired that would love to do this. And the big draw for that is, this is a secret location in the county, and he's got to have a code and everything else to get in there. I mean, this makes this guy feel good, and I'm glad he's willing to do it. But that's just one of many examples, and 3 levels of which they have to have the training and qualifications and background checks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, last question.
All right, Chris Pennewell, Tiger Bay member, and if I could just get one of those blue lights to put on top of my car, that I don't need to drive, the sheriff's car or anything. But you've mentioned a couple times about you kind of look and see who's gotten out of jail and go round them back up. I mean, as a country, do we need to reevaluate our rehabilitation, the way our jails work, and the way what these people are doing besides getting caught up on the reading and lifting weights and learning new tricks?
The recidivism rate in our country is very, very high, and especially the longer someone has been in prison and then they're released, the chances of them having a successful life and being able to get a job is pretty slim. And if you think about this, and I talked about the gang members, and I use as an example Daniel Judge. He is the owner of Honeycomb, which is a business down in South County. He actually has hired 3 gangbangers that were in prison that came out of prison. Now, you get anybody that's got a criminal record and they go down to put in an application, even at Walmart, Kmart, Kohl's, any of those places, there's a question on there. Have you ever been arrested before? Have you ever been convicted? And most of your employers will look at that and you don't get an opportunity. So, I mean, it's tough. Do we need to change what we're doing? This is the American way. You are innocent until proven guilty. In most crimes that you commit here in the state of Florida, you have the availability to get a bond and post a bond. And while you're out, I can just guarantee you that there are a lot of criminals that are out on bond. They're doing a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing. and we try to keep up with them. And I cannot tell you how many times that we know that this guy was committing these burglaries in Bayshore Gardens, and we check and he's out, and we follow him and we catch him again. It's a cycle that sometimes they need so many points in the system after an arrest to be sentenced to prison. But I think bringing them back into our community, like these gangbangers, there has to be something that we can do. Right now I think there's 2 locations. When people are coming down off of their sentence, they have about a year and a half to 2 years left where they move them out of wherever prison they are in the state, and they come to these locations and they get things like, how do you do a checkbook, how do you fill out an application for a job, and they're trying to give them skills. But we got to do a lot more of that, a lot more of that.
Well, this has been very enlightening, and I thank you both very much. And I have to say, Lieutenant Murrell, your passion for your work is very reassuring. So if there is an opportunity to increase school resource officers, we should get behind him. Next Tiger Bay, we'll be talking about jobs. There's a disconnect in our community. We have a lot of people looking for jobs, and we have a lot of employers looking for employees, and there's a mismatch between those people who are qualified to do the work the employers are looking for and those things the people who are looking for jobs want to do. So we're going to talk about the relationship between job creation and actual jobs, and what's going on in the county as far as jobs. I think you'll find this very interesting. And meanwhile, have a great month, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.